I thought I did everything right. I always considered myself a prudent person. I saved part of my salary, invested in the stock market, and even bought a house that was supposed to be the basis for my financial well-being in old age. I thought I had created a solid financial cushion, but as it turned out, my entire smart financial strategy collapsed like a house of cards. It all started with me investing in a seemingly promising company. It was in the early 2000s, and I was sure that this high-tech company would bring me a stable income. I invested almost everything I had. But after a couple of years of success, the company declared bankruptcy, and I lost almost all of my investments. Since then, I have tried to somehow recover, but the pandemic and crises one after another undermined the remains of my savings. Now, on the threshold of retirement, I have almost nothing left in my account. Utah financial guru, my gullibility played a cruel joke on me. I have trusted people all my life. When a close friend offered me to invest in his business, I thought it was a good idea. It was a small family restaurant, and my friend assured me that with my investment, the business would quickly go uphill. I invested not only my savings, but also took out a loan, hoping for a high profit. At first, it was really good, but then, after the crisis, the restaurant began to make losses. The business closed, and all the money I had saved for retirement went to waste. I was left with debts and an almost empty bank account. Now I, an old man with a minimum pension, am trying to find a part-time job just to make ends meet. U/Money Talks 123, when life turns upside down in one moment. For decades I worked, saved a good amount, and thought I would be able to enjoy my old age without financial worries. But one unexpected medical problem took everything. My wife was diagnosed with a rare disease that required expensive treatment. Insurance covered part of it, but the medical bills were colossal. Every time I thought we had it covered, another bill would come, and I would withdraw money from my account again. Eventually, within a couple of years, all my savings were gone. I don't regret doing everything to save her, but the realization that I have nothing left in my old age sometimes weighs more heavily than I expected. Oldtimer 99. They always told me, the pension fund will provide for you. Since childhood, I heard that the state would take care of us in retirement, so I didn't worry too much and didn't save much. I relied on the pension fund and planned a quiet life in old age. However, a few years before retirement, the government made several amendments to the pension legislation. My pension was cut almost in half, and I found myself on the brink of poverty. My children help, but they have enough of their own worries. Saving, whiz. I always thought I had a lot of time ahead of me. I was one of those who lived life to the fullest. Why think about retirement when there were decades of life ahead of me? My youth was wild. Travel, expensive purchases, car loans, impulsive decisions. I made good money working in IT and thought I could always get back into the game, even if I had to start from scratch. But age crept up on me. Suddenly, when I turned 55, my company was downsizing and I was fired. I tried to get a job, but at every interview I heard hints about my age. Without an income, my savings melted away faster than I could have imagined. A few years later, I found myself with a minimum pension and debts accumulated over the past years. Now, at 68, I live on social assistance, and my dream of a carefree old age has dissolved into the ghosts of past opportunities. Retirement reality, everything went down the drain after one bad decision. I spent 30 years working in the oil industry and had saved enough to retire comfortably. I was proud of my savings, a small house, and plans for a quiet retirement. One day, a friend who worked for an investment agency suggested that I invest in a promising shale gas project. He assured me that the income from the investment would allow me to travel and live in luxury. At first, everything went according to plan, and I even made a small profit. But as soon as oil prices started to rise, the company was hit with major sanctions, and my investment was worthless. I lost almost all my savings overnight and was left with no income. Now I am forced to live on a minimum pension, working as a night watchman at a local school to somehow support myself. Golden Years 42. Family is everything, but sometimes you have to sacrifice more than you expected for it. I grew up in a large family, and from a young age I saw my parents give everything so that we could live a better life. As I grew older, I also helped the family. First my parents, then my children. My wife was a housewife for many years, and we relied on my income to cover all expenses. Everything changed when one of my sons got divorced and had to rebuild his life with his children. I offered him and his children to move in with us to save on rent. In addition, I began to help him with finances, paying for my grandchildren's clubs and medical treatment. As a result, the savings that I had put aside for my old age disappeared with each passing year. I kept telling myself that I would have time to save up when they got on their feet. But the years went by, and I imperceptibly approached retirement age. Now, in my old age, I have almost no means to provide for myself and my wife. Although I do not regret helping my family, sometimes it is bitter to realize that in my declining years, I am left with nothing. You, Gramps' wisdom. My dreams and reality turned out to be completely different. From the very beginning of my career, I was sure that I was building a solid future for myself. I worked for over 30 years as an engineer in a large company, contributed money to a pension fund, and saved in deposits. Since my youth, I dreamed that in retirement I would do my favorite thing, travel. I imagined how my wife and I would travel to different cities, finally free from the daily routine. But things changed when I was diagnosed with a chronic illness at 50. Doctors said treatment would require constant monitoring and expensive medications, and my insurance company only covered basic medical expenses. I tried to avoid using my savings for a long time, but the medical bills started to snowball. I couldn't retire early either. My money was rapidly melting away, and I was afraid it wouldn't be enough. I continued working despite my deteriorating health and eventually reached retirement age. But by then my savings were almost exhausted, and the deposit I had counted on was eroded by inflation. Instead of my dream of traveling, I was forced to sell some of my property to cover my debts. I was left alone because my wife died a year before my retirement, and my children moved to another city. In my old age, I found myself with a minimal pension that barely covers the basic expenses for food and medicine. Now the dream of traveling seems something distant and unattainable. Sometimes I think bitterly about how so many years of work, discipline, and planning turned into emptiness, and that I will have to come to terms with this new reality, where every month is a struggle for survival. But despite everything, I am glad that at least everything turned out well for the children, and maybe they will not repeat my mistakes. Human, retired and wise. Life is not a straight line, and it taught me an unexpected lesson. My financial well-being has always been my pride. I worked in construction, rose through the ranks, and became a project manager. All my life, I thought I was building something solid. I bought a house, invested in investments, and saved for retirement. When I was younger, I thought I had a bright future ahead of me. My wife and I thought that in retirement we would be able to enjoy our home, spend more time with our family, and not worry about money. But my plans fell apart when I was 58. It all started when I was laid off. Our company was going through hard times, and my position was one of those that they decided to get rid of. At first, I wasn't too worried, thinking that with my experience I would quickly find a new job. But age became a serious obstacle. During interviews, they always preferred younger specialists who were ready to work for less money and who could more easily adapt to new technologies. My search lasted 2 years, during which time I relied entirely on my savings to pay my mortgage and other bills. My pension fund covered some of the costs, but the situation was getting worse. After a year and a half of unemployment, I decided to sell my house, hoping to survive until retirement. However, by the time I sold it, the property had lost a lot of value, and the proceeds were barely enough to pay off the remaining mortgage. I found myself on the brink of retirement, homeless and with no savings. When I finally got my pension, it was a tiny amount. Without my savings and the home I thought was my castle, I was forced to live in a small rented apartment. My life now consists of a modest budget and planning how to make ends meet. I have become dependent on social assistance and am afraid to go to the doctor because I simply cannot afford it. My story is a bitter reminder that life is unpredictable and can ruin even the most reliable plans. Now I am learning to appreciate the small joys, daily walks, conversations with neighbors, and the occasional call from my children, although sometimes it hurts to think about how much my world has changed. Thank you for listening, We will hear from you in the next selections.